The WAFB Podcast Network is sponsored by Neighbors Federal Credit Union.
Hey, good morning, Jacques. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. I'm talking to Garth Brooks.
Entering his second year as the LSU head football coach.
It was the only way I could get a foot in the door.
Joined by the icon, Kim Mulkey. Hey, Coach, great to see you.
Jacques Talk is sponsored by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp and Kuyon's Cajun Barbecue.
All right, you talk about giants of the game. This guy is a Pro Football Hall of Famer and certainly had an amazing LSU career as well, including that upset over number 1 Florida. Herb Tyler said, just run behind Alan Faneca and I'll find my way to the end zone. Alan, thanks so much for taking time to join us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So how much have you watched of LSU this year?
I've watched a fair amount. Seen them up close.
Well, okay, I got an offensive lineman on, and so the LSU offensive line, we thought they'd be the strength of the team. They've done, a great job in pass protection. The running game has not been as good as what they would like. What have you seen out of the LSU O-line?
I think it's been spotty. I think that's, if you ask them, I would think they would be honest and probably say that as well. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. It seems to be not a complete wash, right? Sometimes they're hitting and then sometimes they're not. It's just kind of an ebb and flow of the game. They really haven't had like the truly dominant game when they've needed it. I think sometimes in pass protection, I know they've got the stat of only giving up, so many sacks. But, he does seem to be a little bit under pressure some, and he does kind of bail them out quite a bit, I think. So I think, in the pass game, that it's got to be in the quarterback's mind a little bit. In the running game, sometimes, you just expect to get like the 1 yard first down, right? Third and 1, and it doesn't always happen, or it doesn't always happen as easily as you think it should be. So I think there's just some points and times when it doesn't just click.
You played on so many offensive lines. Sometimes the sum of the parts is greater than the individual pieces, right? I mean, sometimes this guy's not that great or that, but they quick throws, they're kind of getting their way around it. But these guys, I mean, Emory Jones and Will Campbell, they're going to be first-round draft picks. Miles Frazier is a veteran. Garrett Dellinger just got hurt. He'd be out for the Bama game. But it just seems like maybe with that talent that they should dominate or be better. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the expectations. And I think that's, where I come from in my statements, right? The bar has been set up here. So that's where everybody's looking to see on the field. And it just hasn't been as if the bar has been up here. Maybe we set the bar a little bit too high on them. But like you said, the expectations of the guys returning, the 2 tackles being so highly touted going into the into the NFL eventually here, it just definitely has not clicked. And like you said, so many times, I've been on that offensive line where you've got like 2 or 3 new faces, and somehow it's one of the best offensive lines you've been a part of, and then you go to an offensive line where you've got first round draft picks and big free agent signings, and it just doesn't really click all the time. It's just not always there.
The Saints could use some help, Alan. Well, you're too thin now, I guess. I guess you can't. No, not back in.
You're the spectator.
So Coach Kelly, Brian Kelly, has talked about we got to help Garrett Nussmeier out a little bit. Now, he's made some bad decisions. That A&M game was a nightmare in the second half. He threw 3 interceptions. The first one was a bad decision that kind of flipped the game, the momentum and everything. But when you're not running the football, right? I mean, I was just talking to Andrew Whitworth. That's a nightmare when your quarterback's dropping back. The other guys know you got to throw. It just kind of feeds on itself.
It does. It's a constant pressure. It's a constant pressure on the offensive line up front. They know that defensive line starts to get a feel for things, right? And it's when you're doing that all game long, it starts to wear. They're burning and going and coming, and the pressure's on the quarterback to make every single throw, and it doesn't help out. You need that run game to hit just to keep them off balance, even if it's not your breadwinner, right? It's not bringing it home for you, but it's got to keep everybody honest and allow you to keep kind of grinding it out.
Whitworth was talking about, obviously the offenses have changed since you guys played a lot.
Yeah.
How would you describe running the football today as opposed to trying to run the football in the 90s?
I think for most teams, it's an option. It's not a must, it's an option. Like, just like we talked about keeping the defense honest. I think a lot of teams in today's football world, that's how they look at it. We got to run the ball enough to keep them honest so they can do what they want to do in the passing game, which is a complete reversal of how football was played when Witt and I were playing. So it's completely different.
Yeah. This week, how you feeling about, and we've talked about it before, you were committed to Alabama at one point, right?
Very briefly.
Very briefly.
Very briefly.
And then you woke up on signing day and said, I'm not doing this, right? Or how'd it go?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I committed the night before signing date. Had what went on, told the recruiter from LSU, chewed me out, and I was like, all right, and hung up on him. And then I'm sitting in my room and I'm counting all the LSU items on my wall. High school, you're hanging up T-shirts and posters. And I hit 20 something and I was, what am I doing? What am I doing here? And woke up and changed my mind, and the rest is history.
People goof on Curly Hallman and they say Curly redshirted Alan Faneca. Did you deserve to be redshirted? Were you not ready to play, or how do you feel?
I think it's a different world back then too, right? Definitely everybody they wanted to redshirt everybody back then in those times for the most part. I probably could have cracked the lineup and played. It just kind of hit a point where decision wise, I kind of forced your hand, like, let's either do this or not do it. I don't want to waste half a season waiting around to see if you guys want to play me or not. So I think that's a whole different time and era. It's definitely I think guys probably are a little bit more prepared coming out of high school into college now than say we were back then. We needed that time to grow and to learn a much more complex and advanced system than we were running in our veer offenses in high school.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit more of a growth period, I think, back then as well.
Yeah, well, it's a 3-year countdown now. These guys,
Yeah.
No one's sticking around 4 years.
Right, whether they need to leave or not, somebody's going somewhere.
That's right. The impact of Kevin Falk when you played, I bounce around, Alan, that's what I do. But the impact of Kevin.
Got the weave going.
That's right. That's right. Does his number need to be, I don't know if retired's the right word, because they're going to run out of numbers because so many great players played there. Ring of Honor, something. What do you think?
I mean, definitely Kevin and what he did and what he means just to me as a teammate, much less what he means to the university and the state and what he helped us accomplish in bringing back, LSU football and kind of launching it into where it is gone today. Deserves to be recognized. I like you. I don't know how that gets recognized. There's too many kids. We already got kids wearing duplicate numbers. So I don't know. I do notice how some colleges they do have the Ring of Honor. I'm assuming they're not retiring all these jerseys, but maybe that's something LSU can look into. But definitely something should be done to recognize his contribution and what he means to the state and to the program.
Yeah, and then you as well. I mean, you got a pretty picture up, a painting, right? All the All-Americans and stuff, and
yeah,
I find a lot of Alan Faneca around there for sure. But I guess it is a Pandora's box, right? I mean, you're getting into your Patrick Petersons and Glenn Dorsey's and Tyrann Matthews and two Heisman winners. Yeah.
Yeah, where does it stop? I don't know. I don't know where it stops, but I think you're right on the track, and I think a lot of people in Louisiana feel the same way about Kevin and what he means and just kind of the recognition that he deserves.
Tiger Stadium, can you remember where it made a difference? Like when you're a player, you got that helmet on, so I don't know how much you're hearing or how much that impacts you, but when did it make a difference for you?
Man, running out of the tunnel, late in the games, and the crowd is going crazy, and you can just kind of feel the vibration in your chest, right? Yeah, that shoulder pads are kind of vibrating a little bit. You can feel that. Regardless of defense is on the field and our fans are going crazy. I'm on offense, but it gets me going just as well inside. all those moments you can never get back to those moments, right? Where do you, it wasn't a job at LSU, but I've told this story very often. Where do you get to do a job where you get to go out and play do your job in front of 80,000 fans, whether they love you or hate you, right? Like that's just something you can never get back to. And that's one of the most amazing things about playing football in the SEC and in the NFL.
Yeah. And you played in an amazing place in Pittsburgh, and so forth. Those fans were amazing. But it's all about the college game, right? With the band and the students and everything. It's on a different level.
It is, and it means more, I think, not that it doesn't in the NFL to belittle it, but right, like, a lot of these kids, you're playing for your home state, the school you looked up to, every kid in Louisiana is running around with purple and gold on, and now you're on the field and you got family and friends and people from your hometown are in there, and everybody's cheering for you, and it just means more. The band's in the corner of the end zone. So like you said, it just definitely, it means more in college football, and it definitely means more in Death Valley.
Yeah, it's the old cliche too about NFL as a job, it's work. I mean, you could be lining up to next to some guy that you just met a few days ago, right? That they picked up off the wire or something, and just the camaraderie of being in a college dorm and camp and all those things that you did at LSU.
Definitely. All those bonds you make, it's the equivalent of, taking your high school team and staying with them, right? You're living and you go to college and you meet all these teammates and you kind of grow as turn into men together, right? You're going through all these life experiences through school, and you're turning into grown men with each other, and that's a bond that really can't be broken. And my buddies that I came into LSU with on the team, those are my best friends in life, and I've never lost contact with them, and we're always in touch, and they know and I know it's a phone call away, and we're right there by their side.
That's awesome. You went from Curly to Jerry DiNardo, and a lot of time has passed. There's some guys that play for DiNardo that they still have some feelings hurt about that. How I was always a fan, and I was like, well, this guy's great. They were losing, now they're winning.
Right.
But it was rough, wasn't it? I mean, he comes from that old school. It's not an insult to him, right? It's just the way they coached then, right?
Yeah, I think Curly was a little looser and very much more loved. Jerry was very much iron fist rules. But I think he had to kind of turn things around. We needed that direction and guidance, and it didn't rub off well. And you pair that with anytime a new coach is coming in. Alabama's going through it right now with the Bozier, right? There's a transition with new coaches, a new regime. People are kind of getting weeded out, and new guys are coming in. It's feelings are gonna get hurt, and I think that's just it's a difficult thing for everybody to kind of get their mind wrapped around.
What was the first meeting? Todd McClure said there was a plan that everyone was going to walk out, and then everyone chickened out, and I think it was just that one guy, that linebacker, Cardona or something.
D lineman, David Carmona.
Yeah.
Got up and was like, where's everybody going? And, I think the moment had passed. And, I was a young guy too. So it was just like, man, I'm going to go to practice. I want this all to be resolved and let's go. But it was interesting.
Yeah, you probably came from parents that wouldn't like that phone call, right? Hey, Dad, guess what I did today? You did what?
Yeah, I walked out. Yeah, no, that wouldn't have gone over well.
Yeah. Teammates and people you hold in high regard. You talked about that a little bit. Your LSU teammates, and who are the ones that you do stay in contact with, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh man, the entire offensive line, and our surrogates of heavy body tight ends and quarterbacks that we always invited along to our O-line trips. We had a tight knit group when I was there. And, we went on fishing trips together. We went anywhere and everywhere together. We were like a herd moving around, and we still do it. We don't do it as often anymore, but we do still have an O-line fishing trip that we get together, and there's about 15, 20 of us that get there and make it, and the bonds never break.
Yeah. Savoy, would he be an extension of that offensive line?
Nicky's an extension of that. Savoy, it's definitely Jamie Howard, David LaFleur. Those are some of our exceptions that we allow into the group.
Savoy caught the touchdown and to bring back the magic against Auburn, right? In 95 when the student blew the whistle, and then Nix got sacked in the end zone for the safety and all that. That was a fun night.
Yeah.
When you went pro, there was a press conference, you and Kevin, right? And I just seem to remember it was like it went opposite than what we thought. Like we thought Kevin was going to go pro and Faneca was going to come back or whatever. Was that tough? I remember you crying, I think, right? I mean, it was a tough day for you.
It was tough, man, because just like I'm talking about these bonds, man, my friends, my buddies, my brothers, to choose to leave and go a different path was hard. It was really hard for me. And I was back and forth, and I went to bed, to close my eyes. I didn't know what I was gonna do. And when I woke up, it just felt like it was time to go. I don't know what happened when I fell asleep, but I woke up and I knew it was time to go. It was time to move forward, to take another challenge. And really, it got me in Pittsburgh, which was the best thing possible for me as a professional athlete. So, it all worked out great for me. But it was an extremely hard decision, hard to get up there and talk to you guys that were out there and explain my position and have my brothers, my teammates, a couple of them in the back didn't help me out from trying to hold off the tears at all either.
Well, it's hard to argue with the decision. Your career obviously speaks for itself, and LSU, they had a rough year the next year. They had a losing season, so that was the way it went.
Yeah, it was hard to watch from afar. It definitely was.
A few more things. Today's current landscape of college football. Do you think, like, if I was playing right now, Alan Faneca, you'd have maybe a NIL deal with a car dealership or a chicken wing place, or what was your favorite thing back at LSU? Could you, if you were playing today, can you imagine if you have an NIL deal or how that would have worked?
I've never really thought about it that deeply as far as like who I would have been with, but definitely. People always love to ask me about that, right? They want to know about the today versus, when I was playing. And, when I was playing, when you're in the dorm, we got $119 a month, and that was our breakfast check. We gave up breakfast to get $119 a month and only got fed twice a day. And that was our money. That's what we had to live off of. So it's definitely a different landscape. I don't hate any of them for it. I think it's great. I wish it could be toned down somewhat. I have no ideas on how to make that happen, but it's definitely, it'd be interesting to see like a couple of years from now how this plays out, and like really, it's really, we've been in NIL for a few years now, but it just really is kind of taking hold, and like where are these guys going forward, and where does it all the whole culture go from like now to like 5 years from now? Is it completely change everything? I feel like we're still evolving a little bit with it and seeing where guys are going to go, and how it changes them as people and players, and just kind of see where it brings the game of football as a whole.
Well, you got players running out on senior day who have been there like 6 months, right? Because they came from somewhere else. And look, you're not going to complain about getting Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Tommy White, Paul Skeens, Angel Reese, all these people who have helped LSU win national titles and do great things. But it is kind of, it's like the pro game you played to an extent, right? I mean, rosters are flipping like 50, 60 guys a year. I'm not sure if that's good for the sport.
No, it's probably not. I wish I could that, and that's really what I think could get toned down, or I wish could get toned down, is the flipping and the guys, that's on they're on their fourth college they're playing ball at, and I think game day used to do the where are they nows, and the guys were bouncing all over the place. And I do wish that could get toned down. But on another hand, all these kids are making all this money, and it'd be interesting 5 years from now. What did they do with all this money? Because all these guys aren't going to go play NFL football. And what did you do with that money? And hopefully they're saving it. Hopefully they're getting the right education. Hopefully LSU is teaching these guys how to handle it and what to do with it. Because man, we're not even talking about a couple $100,000, but I mean, I don't know what I would have done with $2,000 in my back pocket back then. So who knows what they're doing.
Tommy Hodson, my childhood hero, told me that in the late 80s, they would go to McDonald's or Burger King. They had like Dollar Day or something on certain days. And that's, and it's hard to believe. Oh, come on, you didn't have money? He's like, I bought a car and I gave it back because I couldn't pay for it. And this is big man on campus. So it's better now. But like you said, maybe it's going too far the other way. Okay. And the LSU offensive lineman. So you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Mawai got in. Whitworth, could he get in, you think? Or
I think he can, man. I think he can. I don't know all of his stats right off the hand, but he's definitely had the career, and it definitely he had really good late years too. I mean, like you talk about him leaving from Cincinnati and going to Los Angeles, that he had some really good years there, and I think compounded it and probably really helps his case out when his time comes here in a couple of years.
Yeah, 16 years, maybe Pro Bowl 4 times, All Pro a couple times, Walter Payton Man of the Year. I don't know if that's sticking up. I mean, certainly, his career was amazing to last that long.
Yeah.
When did you go in? What year was it?
21.
Okay, so just a few years ago.
Yeah.
I know I've asked you about it, but what was that experience like for you? Was it you ever spoke in front of that many people before?
No, never spoken in front of that many people. But it was surreal. The best thing about it, obviously the recognition and the honor of being in that room with all of those guys that are already in the Hall of Fame. But the best thing about it was the opportunity to pause and thank people who helped me out along the way, coaches, mom and dad, my teammates, conversations that you might never have, right? You might have never had that conversation, had this big event never come up, and had a chance to pull a guy aside and tell them something that they might not even really realize, but it had a big effect on me growing up, or playing next to somebody and seeing how they handle themselves. All of those conversations are truly the things that I cherish from that weekend and kind of the months leading up to that, having those opportunities to do that.
And they gave you a time limit, right? You got to hit that in a certain amount of time, or what?
Man, they crushed us that year, man. Everybody else before us was going for like 20 and 30 minutes. I think we had 7.5 or 8 minutes. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. They told me that they were playing some music on me. I didn't hear anything. I think I went a little bit over.
It's like one of those award shows, right? When somebody's giving an acceptance speech, they're going too long. And, all right, yeah, but come on, how are you supposed to sum up a 30-year or a lifetime of football in 7.5 minutes? That's pushing it.
It's a lot of paraphrasing, which it wasn't fun, and it's hard. It's hard to kind of pare that down, right?
Right. Who were you the victim of? Who went too long in previous years? Was that not Emmitt Smith? There
were several guys, and multiple guys were going long, and then so my year was the COVID year before us, so the Centennial guys and us went in back to back, and the Centennial class having 20-something guys go in is what gave them the idea to pare it down, and I think TV had kind of been on them for a while about trying to put a limit on it, so they finally gave in.
How many people over the years did not recognize you after you played? Because you lost how much weight at one point? 180 pounds, something like that?
I lost 100 at one point. I was down 100 at one. I got down to about 85 pounds, and one of my old buddies told me, he's like, well, you got to get to 100. And I was like, shit, I know. Just to say you did it, but it took a while. I think everybody now, when I'd go back to Pittsburgh, I'd get a lot of double takes as I'd walk by. But I think everybody knows now kind of where I go. They've caught on.
Yeah, because you had the beard and you look like this big lumberjack type guy. Now you're this clean cut guy running marathons and stuff, right?
I don't run any more marathons, but I was there for a while. I'm still pretty active in doing things, but I think the back has told me to slow down on the marathons.
Yeah, your doctor's probably saying, Alan, you played how many years in the NFL? Now you want to run marathons? Are you trying to kill yourself or what? So
Exactly.
You look great though. I'm sure you're all good. So
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Is there anything else? How do you view the game this week? So Milroe's going to run around. They're going to have to tackle him. And,
I think it's definitely going to be a test. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think like Coach Kelly is saying, we got to find ways to close it out. I think this is going to be the game where you're going to find out if we've learned that or not.
And the playoff changes this game, right? I mean, typically you have two teams in the top 15, LSU, Alabama, it's going to be great. But now when it's, okay, the losing team is going to have 3 losses, they'll be out of the playoff race and the other guys stay alive. It does add that extra drama to these November games.
It does. It makes it all a little bit more interesting, a little more, it's hard to imagine, college football, right? Even last year, right? Even before this, every game counts. But now it even counts even a little bit more, right? They found a new way to squeak out a little more juice out of it and make it a little more interesting. But like you said, yeah, it's a win or lose if you've got playoff aspirations this year.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing. Do you ever listen to Renegade by Styx?
Occasionally. It's not like on my auto repeat, but definitely yes.
That song. Is it 40 years old now, 50 years old, something like that? It became the tradition in Pittsburgh, right? I mean, they would have to play it at a certain time when the team needed it and all that. So
it started, we were playing Cleveland in the playoffs at home, and it was the 3rd time that year we played, and we've already beaten them twice. And they came out, they were beating us, I want to say by like 24 points. I mean, pretty much that's a done deal. And we started it kind of to fight and get back in it. And somebody up in the booth played Renegade, and it just got the crowd into it. And so that's where it I think they played it 3 or 4 times the rest of that second half. And that's where it just kind of grew. And that's where it was born. Renegade and the Steelers was born that day.
Great stuff. Alan Faneca, I really appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.